This is Dennis John Seatsma, Homestead, Florida, USA. This video log is for today, date and time on the screen. 3.7 liter MerCruiser 1989 that I've had since new, and it's been sitting for probably over a month now without being started. This video is going to show the oil pressure and how she starts. The electric choke on the carburetor is adjusted to full wide open, because I've had too much trouble trying to adjust it in the past. So, and this engine starts pretty well with the choke wide open anyway. So this is purposely, the electric choke works, but I have it adjusted full open. So it's going to be a little cold nature starting. I've got two batteries, number 1 and number 2, with a switch for number 1, number 2, or both. I've got it switched to both, and I load test my batteries pretty often at a 100 amp load tester. And this engine was rebuilt locally by a Hialeah, Florida engine rebuilder, and it's got 85 hours on the clock since the rebuild. I think it was 2007. I'd have to check my receipt to see, but the engine failed 20 hours in, so the clock shows 20 more hours than it actually has. I know, I have not used this boat very much, but I work on it all the time, and I test it in the yard as often as I can. Now, one of the improvements I did was this Quicksilver Commander 4000 Gen 2 controls with the Gen 2 cables, and I had those done by a shop. And you got to keep the lanyard in good shape. So anyway, we're going to see how she starts. And of course, I've already run the blower for a while. This boat has dual bilge pumps, 1 and 2. High volume, one's 1500 GPM and the other is 2000 GPM. And one is automatic, electronically turned on and off, and the other one is has a float switch, or manually bilge. So this is my my project boat. My family bought it new in 1989, and I've had it ever since. I've replaced all the wood in the boat with modern composites, H80 Divinycell, and my engine box is made out of H80 Divinycell and Blue Water 26 Kuza board, and the back seat supports are for storage or for seat platforms, and those are made out of blue 1/2 inch Blue Water 26 Kuza board. So anyway, we got 0 oil pressure. We're going to turn the key on. We got enough gas to start it, got enough voltage. The clock is ticking as I turn it on, and oil pressure, that's the alarm. The oil pressure comes up, the oil alarm goes away. She doesn't want to start, so I'm going to have to pump the accelerator pump a little bit. Oil pressure's around 40, running around 40, and like I said, she's cold natured so she warms up. Very cold natured. And this is a 2-barrel MerCarb. I rebuilt it myself recently, and I got the parts and technical support from Mike's Carburetor online, and they were wonderful, and their website's got great interactive tips on how, and also good videos how to rebuild a 2-barrel MerCarb. They have other videos as well, but my interest was, of course, my engine. So let's see how she starts just like this and see what happens. Idle's not bad. Pressure's around 40 psi. I've got the CDI electronics electronic rectifier regulator and their stator. I've had it for years, been very happy with it. The alternative is the alternator kit, and my friend Kevin over at Breezeworks sells those kits as well as many other companies do. But you see she's purring. Now let's see how the shift is, because I had all the cables replaced and adjusted by a shop, and then I went back and put the boat in the water and did the final adjustment myself. But I want to demonstrate that the shift can be smooth as silk if you've got everything right. And like I said, there's even some videos how to modify and improve this shifter to make it even a little tighter spec. And somebody did a wonderful video on that on YouTube. Guy had great details, but besides, usually though, the most of it's not in the shifter or the cables, it's the lower shift cable. And this is an Alpha 1 Gen 1 drive. Alright, we're going to try to do a shift. I think it's warmed up a little bit. It may kill out because it's cold. Oh, that was nice. It's in forward. That was pretty dang good. We're in forward. And I do these things to do the steering, make sure it's not freezing up, and I check the gears and I run it in the yard before I ever take it to the water. You do not want to put a boat in the water and then find out you've got problems with your controls or your hydraulic lift doesn't work properly. Alright, we went back to neutral. Let's see how she goes in reverse. You'll be listening as I put it into reverse, see if it kills out or if it keeps going. Beautiful. That's what you want. Now, I had older controls on this boat, but to my mind, the docks are so busy in Southeast Florida on a busy day that to me, it was a liability issue. So that's one of the reasons I paid a professional marine stern drive shop to install the controls and do the cables. And of course, I'd already done the bellows and the gimbal and all that stuff, and the ram limit sender and the level sender for the trim on the... I did all that first, took it to a shop, and then they told me I did a lousy job with the U-joint bellows. They said it was leaking and contaminated the gimbal bearing. So they said they changed the gimbal bearing and the bellows and did it all right. I haven't had the drive off yet, so I don't know. Because you put the drive on and off the boat and can see how well you did. And you really don't know until you pull it, you know. If it's leaking, you'll probably notice some water leaking into the boat, but you may not. And you really don't know for sure until you pull a drive after you've done some work and make sure that there's no problems. Now, if people work on the bellows job, and that's supposed to be done every 5 years, you want to really take it to the closest body of water and dunk the boat and check for leaks. Because you don't want to drive at 100 miles and then find out you got a leak. I read some story about some guy went on vacation and that was the situation. And I'm seeing some things I want to spray down with ACF 50 corrosion preventative. That I see a little surface rust developing. I keep my engine under a tarp, even though my engine box is pretty good at keeping water off it. I like the tarp, let it cool down and then put a tarp over it. And the reason the CDI electronics rectifier regulator is superior to the OEM original manufacturer's equipment is they use a switching circuit for regulation instead of the passive. I think they might have used a clamping diode, like a 14.25 clamping diode to regulate. And I did have a little loss of coolant, so I've been keeping an eye on that. The impeller seals like to leak on the camshaft extension. and that's usually remedied by replacement of the speedy sleeves or replacement of the camshaft. I prefer the speedy sleeves, and it used to be Federal Mogul, or however you pronounce it, that made the speedy sleeves, but now it's SKF, whatever that is, another company. I guess one bought the other. But most machine shops know about how to resurface seal areas using the speedy sleeves or easy sleeves. Been real happy with the rectifier regulator and stator from CDI Electronics, Huntsville, Alabama. Had it for years and years, been real happy with it. Other people love the alternator kit, but alternator kit to me takes up a little more space on the front of the engine and requires some changes and modifications, and the kits have got better over the years. You know, the early kits, they had some problems with the belts coming off, but in later years, other people like the pointless ignition. This has points and condenser. I'm staying with the points and condenser because I like, I'm kind of old school that way. I have the pointless kit that I got from Pertronics, and I installed it, but it didn't work, so I took it back off. I later found out there was a problem with the rotor, how it fit against the reluctor, and the reluctor was pushing the rotor up on the distributor shaft, and the shaft was turning, but the rotor wasn't, so the distributor wasn't distributing spark to all 4 cylinders, or maybe even not even one. So some people sand down the older kits. I've been told Pertronics has updated the spec on those reluctors, the little round magnet, black little thing that fits on the shaft. So the newer kits may not suffer from that. But I'm giving it enough time to move the oil around in the stern drive. It's been in reverse this long and idling really nice. Again, my oil pressure is it dropped a little bit. It's probably around 30 now, and temperature's not come up yet. I have a lot of people complain about problems with the cooling system, but this is a closed cooling system and it has a heat exchanger, and people try to work on this engine like a regular old-fashioned steel block, steel head engine, and this engine's really a gem if it's well maintained and done according to the service manual and all of the service bulletins that MerCruiser put out over the years. But the rectifier regulator's 40 amp, the kit is like 62 amps or something, so some people like having the higher output. But you can fry a rectifier regulator or fry an alternator if your batteries are bad, and that's the biggest culprit of failed electrical systems in marine, is people don't load test their batteries. And you can take the battery out and take it to places that sell battery, and they'll load test it for you and even fully charge it for you if it needs that, or they'll sell you a new battery. But a load tester is pretty inexpensive. I like OTC Tools. They make a dandy load tester in both 100 amp and 130 amp. I see Harbor Freight sells a really cheap knockoff of a 100 amp load tester, and it's on sale. It's very affordable. But people don't appreciate the value of load testing their battery with a load tester that actually draws a lot of current, like 100 amps, 130 amps. Your cranking amps might be 500 amps when you start with a starter battery. And people beat me up all the time for recommending the standard flooded cells starting batteries of maybe 500, 600 amps. This engine only requires 450 cranking amps, so anything over 450, you're spending more money. And if you get a 1,000 amp battery like I used to do, you're really packing those plates in there tight into a group 24 battery. And the tighter the plates are, the more failure prone the battery is, because the way batteries fail is they either oxidize the plates or they get contamination between the plates. So if you maintain your batteries and replace them when they fail the load test, or if they won't come up to the right float voltage, I've got battery tenders that I leave on these when it's on the trailer. I use battery tenders a lot, especially the outdoor sports model, and it'll bring it up to the float voltage. Now, other people like using AGM batteries, and that's fine if your electrical system's designed for an AGM battery. I used AGM batteries for years on air traffic control systems, and they're great, but the regulator has to be set for the optimum voltage, or you will overcharge the battery. And that's what happens is the float voltage per cell is a little bit lower on the AGM, and if you hook it up to a standard electrical system designed for a flooded cell, you end up burning out the battery. You will dry it out internally and it'll puff out on you. It'll overcharge. So, and I don't know of any way to adjust these older systems for AGM battery for the optimum float voltage. And I say per cell, it depends on the number of cells in the battery, and that depends on the voltage of the battery. And I'm not going to get down into the weeds of the per cell, but if your per cell is X amount and your electrical system is designed for Y amount, there's a delta there, and it's not going to end it well. Alright, well, she's been running for a little while, and the oil pressure continues to drop. It's down there, oh, I don't know, maybe, you really can't read this that too well, but it's 20, 40, 60, let's see, what is it? 80 is full scale. So I accidentally, I was changing out the light in here because I don't like the standard light holders in these gauges. So I like to put wired light holders, and it was a lot of work. And I accidentally drilled a hole through the gauge there, so, but it's reads under there 250, 500, and 0, and I assume that's metric. It says kPa on the meter, so whatever 250 is, so that must be about half that. But as it warms up, the oil pressure tends to get a little bit lower, and especially when you go back to idle. And one day I'll take this out on the water and we'll rev it up and see how high she goes. But for now, I'm going to show off the smooth shift again. And I hope the accelerator pump's working, so raise the RPM a little bit. Pressure came up almost to mid-scale again, around, I don't know, 1300 RPM. I never like to run this engine over 3000 because these engines have a history of rod knock, and they don't like it when you go on a hard run and then you shut it down quick. You got to come down from your running RPM in segments, couple hundred RPM at a time, and your oil pressure will stay a lot better that way, and it'll start better too. I found that over the years of operating. I run this boat from Miami to Key West. Really, it's running nice today for this demo. So anyway, hope you enjoy my video. And goes up, goes down like you want it to, and I've rebuilt that hydraulic pump a bunch of times myself, and had to put a new electric motor in it finally. And then the up side of the hydraulic messed up, and I had to switch up and down, and then change the electrical up and down. And now it works fine again, but usually when it won't go up or down, it's the ramps need servicing. Those gaskets in the rams freeze up. And a lot of people report problems with getting it to go up or down, and usually it's a problem with the ram limit switch. They got bullet connectors there that come loose in the back. And anyway, hope you like my tips, and I appreciate my subscribers, and hope you enjoy the video.